Hasbro was not messing around today, familia. Before we begin, hit that subscribe button and ring that notification bell so you never miss an episode of Power of X-Men. And man, the reveals we got today on Hasbro's live stream, it's next level. Look at these figures. I'm literally like going crazy. I'm so excited. I could not stand still. I was watching the live stream from the W in our neighborhood here, having my morning coffee, kind of like going through emails. And when I saw Xavier in the Savage Land costume from the animated series, I was like, oh my God, with the David Nakayama art, I was like, oh my God, this is so great that even if this was the only reveal we were going to get, I still was going to jump on and react to it. But when they got into the X-Men themed wave, I was like, oh, one figure after another was just constantly all these great reveals, and I gotta tell you, I love them all. Familia, I love all of these figures. This to me is probably the best X-Men themed wave we have gotten since the Warlock wave back in, like, what was that, like 2015, 2016? I'm forgetting when that Warlock wave hit, but that was my favorite, like, Marvel Legends wave that we have gotten probably. So, okay. Wave 6 from the Toy Biz era, back when we got like Deadpool, Phoenix, Juggernaut, Cable, that wave, the original Toy Biz Wave 6. I love that wave. Then it was the Warlock wave that I mean, we got Polaris, we got Cyclops, we got Dazzler and the Build-A-Figure Warlock. I love that one. And now this one. I mean, this wave just checks off so many of the characters I love. But before we get into it, we're going to go through all the figures, all the reveals for the X-Men, one by one. But before we get into it, I just want to say what great chemistry Ryan, Dwight, and Dan have. Like when the Hasbro stream started off and Dan was like, wait a minute, I have some surprises for you. And it was these Christmas sweaters. I want that Hulk one that Dan gave Ryan so badly. I just thought, like, man, these guys, it's lightning in a bottle. We are truly living in a golden age of Marvel Legends, and I hope it never ends. I hope it never ends because it is such a great vibe that these guys are putting out there. And we've been going strong for such a long time. Oh gosh, it gets better and better. All right. So the first reveal we got was Xavier in the green jumpsuit, which is from the animated series. And that's going to be a retail exclusive, and it's going to be to Target. So it's going to be available at Target as a retail exclusive. I hope he's not as hard as Warbird to get. I mean, listen, the David Nakayama packaging on this figure, the retro card, I mean, absolutely chef's kiss. Looks so great. This is the animated series, so it's going to go great with your X-Men 97, X-Men 92 waves, BHS, the 97 waves that we've been getting. Those are the figures that this will sort of be grouped in with, because when he goes to Savage Land in season 2, he was tricked to go there by Morph, pretending to be Magneto in distress. It was all part of Sinister's big plot in season 2. But he goes to Savage Land, and when he gets there, because of the Savage Land juju in the air, it stopped their mutant powers. So Magneto and Xavier did not have access to the mutant powers. But Xavier could also magically walk. He regained the use of his legs. So, you know what? We just go with it. But interesting enough, that is strictly just for the animated series. So that sort of story never really happened in the comic books. And we've spoken with the Lee Waltz about that in the past. Fox did not want them to tell like an overarching story. They just wanted like one story. So they actually drew and directed those scenes of Xavier and Magneto in the Savage Land separately and sort of spiced it in throughout the entire season. So they kind of tricked the network into thinking there was just going to be a standalone episode with Xavier and Magneto in the Savage Land, but it ended up being a season-long story. So clever, those Lee Walls, very clever. But Again, the Savage Land story where Xavier could walk was actually only in the animated series. He would regain the ability to walk in the comic books when the Shi'ar cloned his body. But then during the Muir Island saga, he would get into an astral fight with the Shadow King, and those injuries he sustained in the astral plane would be true to his real life body. And so he lost his ability to walk again. And that's when he got his iconic hover chair. And he would have the iconic hover chair until New X-Men, when Zorn, which was just Sublime posing as Magneto, posing as as Zorn, would have like little nano night sentinels that would trick Xavier into thinking that his body was healed, but it was actually just a nano night sentinels keeping his body up. So at the end of New X-Men, even though he was walking the entire run, Zornito was just like, haha, it's just been a ruse. So he lost his ability to walk. And then throughout House of M, he was back in his chair. But at the end of House of M, because Xavier goes missing during House of M, he would regain his ability to walk when he returns in Deadly Genesis. So that was a big question mark at the end of House of M. We didn't know where Xavier was. He reappears in Deadly Genesis, and Wanda had restored his ability to walk. And then he would die during Avengers versus X-Men. And he would come back in Phantom X's body, and then obviously the Krakoan age, and he's kept his ability to walk since then. So since Deadly Genesis, Xavier has been able to walk, but again, never in the Savage Land did he have that story in the comic books. So the figure looks great. Obviously, like if you look at the episodes that the story takes place in, Xavier, depending on the shot, either has like the greenish gloves or like brownish gloves. I happen to like how these look right here. I think the green looks really great. Dwight or Ryan, or maybe Dan, one of them mentioned, I think it was Dwight, mentioned that Xavier's finger is kind of like this. And I got a couple DMs about it. Like, why does Xavier look like he's about to go scratch something? And that's exactly what Dwight said on the stream. He's like, this is the first Xavier figure we have where he's kind of like scratching his head. So I'm okay with it. I think it looks good. Because he's in the Savage Land, he does not have access to Cerebro. And because he doesn't have his powers, he couldn't really use Cerebro. But the Hasbro team acknowledged that during the live stream, but it was a way to give us a very cool looking new Cerebro helmet. I wonder if this can like fit on some other characters. I've talked about it before. The Cerebro helmet that came with Xavier, the hover chair Xavier, was also used for the Walgreens exclusive Stepford Cuckoos. And it's like, this is great, but it doesn't really fit on the Stepford Cuckoos. So I'm excited. New Cerebro helmet. I mean, thank you. Thank you, Hasbro. Thank you for just this first reveal alone. I am so happy. And then we dove into what would be an X-Men themed wave. And a few of these figures were revealed before, and we'll kind of go through it now as we discuss it. But Fabian Cortez, Familia, one of my favorite X characters, one of my favorite X villains is Fabian Cortez. He really shined at the beginning of the Krakoan era in Sword. Flink and I reviewed that launch years ago on the podcast, but I loved his look in it. I love that he's so devoted to Magneto in a way that's just like unhealthy and toxic for everyone involved, right? But Fabian Cortez is one of those characters that's just delusional and very deliciously evil. And I've always loved the character. Always, since I saw him in the animated series and since I read him back in the 90s. So I think having Fabian Cortez here, I hope he is a herald for more acolytes. One of the things that Dwight did make sure to point out is that don't worry, he's got his ponytail, and that ponytail, Familia, looks so good. Oh, you need Fabian Cortez with that beautiful ponytail. It's a hallmark of the character. It is what it is. Fabian Cortez, he looks really great. I like the shoulder pads. I love the mold. The face looks very maniacal and evil. I love his power effects. I just, thank you. Thank you. He's bright. He's colorful. He looks like he stepped out of the 90s comics, out of a Jim Lee issue. So thank you, thank you, thank you for this figure. This is personally one of my favorite characters. I mean, if they would have thrown in an Adam X here, I would have been like, perfect wave. That's it. This is like my all-time favorite perfect wave of all time. But Fabian Cortez right there. Oh, Familia, chefs. The chef kisses cannot be given more for this figure. Absolutely wonderful. And then we did get the Uncanny X-Force Nightcrawler. We saw digital rendering of him. Now, technically, this is Age of Apocalypse Nightcrawler, who crosses over during the Uncanny X-Force issues, and he sort of stays in our reality while the 616 main reality Kurt is dead. So he gets a brand new costume, and he's with the Uncanny X-Force team. Great. Listen, the Rick Remender era of Uncanny X-Force is one of my favorite runs of all time in the X-Men universe. Absolutely. Go out and get it. I this would probably be the only one in the wave that I'm sort of disappointed in a little. I'm sorry. I know. I listen, I'm happy we have another Nightcrawler figure. That's never going to be an issue here. We have another Marvel Legends Nightcrawler figure, but I think because Dwight, Ryan, and Dan sort of alluded, they're like, oh, Uncanny X-Force. Make a note of that. Are they going to re-release some of the figures that we've already seen, like Psylocke, Phantom X? Well, we already got Phantom X, so he would be a really good companion for Phantom X. But we did get that Uncanny X-Force San Diego Comic-Con exclusive box set, which is, again, absolutely it is an incredible box set. Still holds up today, but you got Psylocke, Archangel, and Wolverine. Those figures definitely do need to be re-released. um, because it's been a minute since those came out. It's a great box set, but so I think he is going to be a herald again, to use that word, a herald of more Uncanny X-Force figures to come. So again, it's going to have to be Wolverine, Archangel, Phantom X, Psylocke, maybe a Kid Apocalypse. Give us a little Kid Apocalypse. But I think that is sort of where we're going to go with that. Oh, and of course, the Build-A-Figure Nemesis. This is actually based off of his Uncanny X-Force. So this is not actually Age of Apocalypse Nemesis. This is actually 616 Nemesis, if that kind of makes any sense to those who don't really follow comic books quite as closely as some of us do. But this is not the Age of Apocalypse Nemesis, who was originally called Holocaust. This is 616 Nemesis, born right here I was going to say in the real world, in the main Marvel universe. And he appeared in Uncanny X-Force. So I think it's safe to say we're going to get some more of those X-Force looking costumes. We have reported on that before in the past that another Archangel, maybe an X-23 Laura was going to be coming down the pipeline, as well as a Warpath. That is an entirely different run than Rick Remender's, but the costumes sort of look similar. So I think we are going to get a re-release of all of those X-Force figures. I was going to say Uncanny X-Force figures, but all of those kind of like X-Force era in the black and gray costumes. So, hey, listen, I think it's great. I think the Uncanny X-Force, again, the Phantom X, Psylocke, Wolverine, Archangel ones are the ones I would like to see quite a bit re-release. I think that is a great team, a great era, great run. But reason why I'm not resonating with this is because he is technically Age of Apocalypse Kurt, who crossed over during the Uncanny X-Force run. I would have rather have gotten a traditional Uncanny, or excuse me, Age of Apocalypse Excalibur Nightcrawler with the swords and everything, but it's fine. Listen, we have him here and he looks great. He looks great. I'm always going to be a sucker for the Age of Apocalypse and the true OG Age of Apocalypse. And fun fact, the Iceman we got in the Age of Apocalypse wave is actually based off of the Uncanny X-Force Age of Apocalypse Iceman who appears in there. Again, it's the same Age of Apocalypse Iceman character, but he crosses over too with several other characters. They revisit the Age of Apocalypse, spoiler alert, and some of them cross over. And he is rendered there with a spiky hair instead of that Joe Mad, like Ryder Strong hair. Anyways, okay. That is all we have to say on the Uncanny X-Force Age of Apocalypse Nightcrawler there. He looks great. Listen, alternate head. You can never do Nightcrawler wrong. He's always going to be one of those characters everyone always wants another one of. And speaking of characters that people are always going to want another one of, Wolverine in his extreme costume. It took me like a minute there to like kind of like, wait a minute. Like Wolverine was technically in the Grant Morrison new X-Men team during this era, but like I get it. We've revisited Extreme X-Men. He did sport this costume on some covers that are pretty iconic, him and Storm. So if they do more extreme X-Men, I think this is nothing but a good thing. The Storm look during that run, the Salvador LaRocca inspired Storm. Oh, the Rogue. We've gotten the Rogue before. In Toy Biz, we got three variants of her. We got one with the short hair, longer hair, and then with and without the glasses, I believe. The one with the longer hair on the swoosh, they used to call her, and this is like 2000 and like 2006. They used to call her Granny Rogue, which was so like mean. But like again, the face looked a little off at the time, but I think those figures still hold up. Of course, Hasbro is going to be like, hold my beer. We're going to give you better ones. But the extreme era costumes, I have no qualms with. Give us a Build-A-Figure lifeguard. Give us Slipstream and lifeguard. But we have Wolverine in his extreme costume. Very excited. What this can only be a herald for more. I think that is the key that I'm going to say here for every figure. There are herald for more figures to come down that line. All right. So next up, we have someone who's going to take us for a ride, and that is Marrow. I can't believe it. I just can't believe this is a reality. I honestly cannot believe that this is reality. We've also reported on Marrow being a rumored Marvel Legends that was coming down the pipeline. You know, we kind of debated, is it going to be her Gene X, or is it going to be her like mid 90s, mid to late 90s, early aughts costume, which was obviously appeared in the Marvel vs. Capcom 2 video game. It's been iconicized by that. I am so glad. I really am so glad that that's the one we're getting with so many bone accessories. I mean, the greens and the blues. I mean, they nailed that. The colorists at the time, they nailed what they were doing. It looks so good. She looks like she's popping right out of those issues from Zero Tolerance. Oh, I'm so excited. Zero Tolerance. The 12, that was sort of her era, Marvel versus Capcom. That was sort of the era that Marrow was really there. And she was being pushed quite a bit. She was doing some team ups with Spider-Man. I cannot believe we have her. I'm literally like almost like I'm trembling just talking about her. I'm like, what do you want me to say? Like when I was thinking about like what am I going to say? I'm like, it's perfect. I mean, this is such a biased stream right now, so I do apologize, Familia. But for me, like this is just a perfect figure. I want her. I'm going to buy like 8 of her. I'm going to buy like 8 of all of these in this wave. I cannot wait to pre-order it. But Marrow is one of those figures that I think we really needed. They said maybe more, like her are going to come. So there is that rumored Marvel versus Capcom wave that's coming down the line. They're not allowed to use Capcom, right? So it's just Capcom air quotes, but I hope we get to see more of these. I think a Psylocke, a Spiral, a Storm, those are, really great figures. We already have Cable. Those would be really great figures to see. Rogue has a very distinct look in Marvel versus Capcom. I was talking to someone on DMs about it. I think in lieu of the traditional Jim Lee, we can get that variant silver and green costume that she had. Let's see where it goes. But Marrow, I'm really happy for her. Okay, next up, and Familia, I cannot believe that we are talking about this finally at long last. Husk. Husk with an alternate head and flesh accessory. What? That's exactly how we wanted her. No notes. It's exactly how we wanted her. We want her half her face off with like the chrome part and then show us the fleshy parts, that she has to take off, right? Because she goes like that. Husk, she has been on everyone's want list. Husk has been on the want list since we saw Marrow, and we're like, listen, or Marrow, since we saw M, and we're like, listen, you already have M out there. Just use that body, slap on Husk's face, and like, let's call it a day. They gave us more. They gave us lots of accessories. They gave us an alternate head. I mean, Paige Guthrie is coming to Marvel Legends. So that's already 3 official Generation X figures we have. Chamber, Husk, and M. Give us Jubilee in this costume. I'm shocked that we haven't seen Jubilee yet. Give us Jubilee in her Generation X costume with the bangs and the hair and the costume and the yellow jacket, right? Familia ad nauseum, I have said I want the Banshee with the John Lennon glasses. I'll take him with the Celtics jacket as well. But a Generation X Banshee, definitely a Generation X Emma. You could get away with doing a Generation X Emma. I am shocked that we don't have a Generation X Emma yet because Emma's such a popular character. We would look just throw her out there. People will just eat up an Emma Frost figure. Please and thank you. But I think a next build a figure could be Mondo. Mondo would be great. Skin and Sync. I'd be such a happy fanboy. Emplate. Give us all of the Generation X figures. I think Paige looks really good. Paige is one of those characters that, if not done correctly, could have looked really basic on figure formats. And listen, I'm going to be displaying her with her half transformed face. So I just want to be very clear about that. It's going to be the half transformed face. Her regular depowered face, I think, very needed. But again, to my point, looks a little basic. Could have come out basic. They did the best they could. Her hair's to the side. Sculpt looks great. So I am very happy. Like, they defied all expectations with this. Oh, Familia, I can't believe it. I can't believe that we have her. That to me just tells you that the Hasbro team truly, truly cares about the fans, about what we want, about the things that we have been asking for. And speaking of things that we've been asking for, X Factor Cyclops, not Jean, but they're obviously going to be recreating that X Factor issue 1 cover. They mention it. If you want to see more, let us know. It's going to have to be a green and gold Jean if they're doing the Cyclops, and that's fine. I have no qualms. I'm going to move over here so you guys can see it right there. I'm like getting on the corner right here. Look, there he is. I mean, I'm going to overlay the images, but just in case that something goes wrong with the overlaying the images. Yeah, this is fresh off of him leaving Madeline Pryor in Alaska to reform. Well, not reform the X-Men, but the original X-Men saw that Magneto was leading the X-Men and Jean had just come back to life following the events of Dark Phoenix, who was discovered at a cocoon at the bottom of the Jamaican Bay. And they form X Factor because they refused to let Magneto lead them. Yeah, it was a great era for them. And this is the costume that Cyclops wore. Again, like, I think we've gotten already some of these figures. You know, we already have Angel. We now have X Factor Cyclops. I think we have a retro card Iceman out there that looks from this era. You know, I think it would be wise that they re-release him. Obviously, Beast. So really, the only one who's missing is going to be X Factor Jean. And taking us home in this wave is Age of Apocalypse Gambit. Now, the only thing about this figure that I would have wanted, personally, me, pie in the sky, irrational, it's not even fair to mention this, but for me, I would have loved to have seen him with an M-Cron crystal, because that's the big thing of Gambit and the externals. He has to go off into Shi'ar space and get a shard of the M-Cron crystal so they could restore reality. And in order to get that M-Cron crystal shard, he has to sacrifice that which he holds so dear. And that's his love for Rogue. It's so beautiful. And if you listen to our episode with Bo the Mayo, X-Men 97's former showrunner, this would have been a larger plot in X-Men 97. They would have done Age of Apocalypse, and Gambit would have had to sacrifice his love for Rogue and what sort of those ramifications would have been in the main reality. I love it. You know, he is inspired by Robin Hood during this run. So he steals from the rich and he gives to the poor. His team consists of Jubilee and Lila Cheney. It is a great, we've covered it on the podcast before. If you listen to that episode, Gambit and the Externals is my favorite Age of Apocalypse book, excuse me. And I don't want to say it was my favorite look. Now I'm just getting greedy. Now I'm just like, my eyes are going crazy because I'm just so happy. But Gambit and the Externals is my favorite Age of Apocalypse book. I think it was such a fun book. The team has to, again, they're in Manhattan. They're stealing from the rich, giving to the poor. And then they're transported into deep Shi'ar space. And they're tasked by Magneto to get a shard of the M'Krong crystal because it's part of a larger plan to restore reality. It is an epic story. It is an epic side book. I love it. Go read it. Go read it. But Gambit here is inspired by Robin Hood. So is everyone else on the team. Jubilee originally was supposed to have a hawk in that book. I've asked around. I asked Scott Lobdell, and he's here like, oh, you're going to have to ask Tony Daniel that. I'm like, okay, I'll just slide into his DMs and ask him that. But no one really has a memory of that hawk. But Age of Apocalypse Gambit, he has a really interesting history in figure format because he was originally supposed to be part of that 5-inch Toy Biz line for Age of Apocalypse, but he never made it out. And then he only made it out at Marvel's Famous Couple with an Age of Apocalypse Rogue, which was just a repaint of the Generation X Emma Frost figure. So that's how we got an Age of Apocalypse Gambit back in the day, was through the release of that 2-pack, even though he was originally slotted to be in that original Toy Biz Age of Apocalypse wave. No idea why it never came out, but in that wave initially. But we that's how we kind of got him. And when we sort of ended wave 2 of Age of Apocalypse, I think a lot of us assumed we were going to get a wave 3 because so many figures were still outstanding, like Storm, like Quicksilver, Nemesis, Age of Apocalypse Nemesis, Sinister, right? We were thinking, oh, there's so many characters still left to do. And then, I think we all I think it's been assumed, like, I don't want to say like an open secret or anything like that, but we've seen that these figures have been all over Ollie's and sort of some of the secondhand distribution channels. And we're like, and maybe it didn't sell so well, but I'm so glad the Hasbro team found a way to give us Age of Apocalypse Gambit. He looks great. No notes. Okay, maybe like a little note. The only little note is his hair is a little bit more like all over the place, right? Like that Tony Daniel hair. Like it's very like sharp. It's a little tame here, but what a minor fucking note, right? What am I? This is how you know, Amelia. This is how you know this is a good wave when you have to mini pick the most obscure things. Gambit always has great hair, even in this figure. Very happy. And of course, the Build-A-Figure Nemesis, originally called Holocaust, at least in the Age of Apocalypse context. His name was retroactively given as Nemesis. In story, he's called Nemesis. Then it switches to Holocaust during the main books. And then in the 616 Uncanny X-Force Rick Remender run, he is addressed as Nemesis. For the obvious reasons, we stick with the name Nemesis. He looks great. This is, again, him, like born in the main universe. It's not his Age of Apocalypse counterpart, which died during Exiles, and I don't think we've seen him again. Him and Nate Gray got into a fight. They got into a fight in the Age of Apocalypse. And that shard of the M'Krong crystal, Nate stabs Holocaust with it, and they end up in the 616 reality. At 616, Nemesis is born. And out there, I believe it's Famine who Apocalypse gets with. But the Age of Apocalypse one that came with Nate, he would go on to be on the Exiles and then die. So he looks great. Dwight said this was one of his favorite Build-A-Figures that he has ever done. And I have to agree. It looks so good. It looks so good. I mean, really, truly, they outdid themselves. So, Familia, that is our reaction to the Hasbro stream today. Lots of great goodies, lots of great stuff. I can't believe it. Husk and Barrow and Fabian Cortez and Age of Apocalypse Gambit. Those are probably like my favorite ones. Those are my 4 favorite ones. If I had to rank them, if I have to rank them, how would I do? Okay, I want to be objective about it. I think being objective is always like the best thing. So I think for us collectors, I'm going to give number 1 to Marrow, number 2 to Husk, right? Okay, 1 and 2. 3, I'll give Nightcrawler. Again, even though it's not my personal, I think 3 there. I think that is going to be a really great favorite. 4 is going to be Age of Apocalypse Gambit. 5 is going to be Fabian Cortez. 6 will be X Factor Cyclops, and the last one is Extreme Wolverine. But again, I think these look really, really great. My personal favorite, it's Marrow. I'm going to give it to Marrow. My personal favorite is definitely Marrow. Or Husk. I can't decide. Anyways, Amelia, what do you think of this wave? Are you excited? Are you going to be collecting them? Are you going to get the Build-A-Figure Nemesis? Are you just going to get one or two of these? Tell us, do you want these figures to truly be Heralds for More? Heralds for More, again, just to quickly recap for everyone. Extreme Wolverine, you can do the Extreme Team. Uncanny X-Force Nightcrawler, do the Uncanny X-Force team plus the other X-Force, the Kyle Yost X-Force as well. Meryl, Marvel vs. Capcom, Plethora, Husk, Generation X, need we say more? Fabian Cortez, we can get all of the Acolytes. Give us Joanne. Oh, I would love Frenzy. Give us Frenzy, please. Age of Apocalypse Gambit, more Age of Apocalypse figures, and of course, X Factor Cyclops. Give us X Factor, the original X Factor team, specifically Jean. So all of these are sort of heralds for more to come. Ring that notification bell and hit that subscribe button for more episodes of Power of X-Men. What a great way to kick off Friday. What an excellent way to kick off the weekend, Familia.